On Sunday, the Taliban captured Panjwai in Kandahar, the group's birthplace and former stronghold. It's now inching closer to the regional capital, Kandahar city. But this is just a day after Afghan troops abandoned areas of northern Badakhshan province to the Taliban. On Friday, US and NATO forces vacated Bagram Air Base near the capital, Kabul, the center of American operations for the past 20 years. The remaining US troops will officially leave the country on September 11th, a move that many regional experts say could cause Afghanistan to descend into another civil war. The Taliban claims it's already recaptured the majority of Afghanistan's territories.
Thanks to God, and this was proven before, that the majority of the Afghan people in the previous era during the Taliban rule for more than 10 years. We are now in control of more than 70% of the territories. It is simply because the people know us very well and the Afghan people have no problem dealing with us. We have two main principles that we rely on when it comes to judgment. First is the blessed Islamic faith, and the second is our belief in our national identity. Within the framework of these two principles, I can assure you that we do not have any problem with anyone. We respect everyone's right.
Well, Hassan Abbas is a professor of international relations at the Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies and author of The Taliban Revival. He joins us via Skype from Washington. So the Taliban recently captured more districts in northern Afghanistan. So they now have a very heavy presence in provinces like Badakhshan and Takhar. Why do they seem to be concentrating so heavily on the north of the country?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think they are focused in that part of Afghanistan because it has a lot of psychological value for them. They are seen as very strong in the Pashtun-dominated areas in the south and in the east. And everyone thought in the north there are old warlords, those influential Uzbek and Tajik leaders who had a lot of support over the years. So perhaps people thought it will be hard for Taliban to gain strength in that area. So they have started from that part of the world, that part of Afghanistan world, because that provides them an edge in terms of public opinion, creating fear as well. So it sounds unexpected, but Taliban had a lot of time since they signed that deal with the United States. They had a time to strategize. They have been taking their steps very cautiously and in a well-planned manner, it seems.
So just to be clear about this, in the 1990s, when the Taliban was in power in Afghanistan, Badakhshan was the only province that they didn't control. How significant is it that they've managed, they're in control of many districts, but if they managed to consolidate their position there, what sort of message does that send out, given that it was a traditional stronghold of the warlords that allied with the United States to defeat the Taliban in 2001?
Your important point about districts is very relevant here. Currently, we know that out of the 421 districts in total, Taliban probably have control over 1/3, maybe at best. So it's still that their support base or their victories are kind of not significant in a larger picture. 1/3 of Afghanistan, which we always thought they have their strong presence in those areas. Also, what it means when we say a certain district has been taken over by Taliban, do they have the infrastructure capability? Do they have the bureaucracy? Are they running the healthcare system, education system? No. This is just some Taliban with their weapons and retreating Afghan forces, of course, create a scene of confusion. But it has to be seen in that broader light. And the areas that you have mentioned, you're right, they are problematic from a psychological point of view. It's symbolic also for Taliban, but that shows that apparently Afghan forces are trying to converge close to the Kabul area to strengthen their stronghold in the Kabul area and allowing some of the rural areas in the distant areas in the periphery if Taliban feel they can show their power by.
Does this mean that then Kabul, the government in Kabul, is not going to worry too much about reversing these military setbacks, particularly if Afghan security forces in many of these rural areas are basically surrendering. I mean, in recent days, Afghan forces, the reports Afghan forces fled across the border into Tajikistan, so they're not putting up a fight.
Yes, some of the forces in which are which lack the support coming from Kabul will probably give up in areas where they think the Taliban rise is evident, and it's a bad sign for Kabul without a doubt. Still, I would say when the president of Afghanistan heard from US last week, they'll get about $3 billion in support for the Afghan security forces. The areas where there are headquarters of Afghan forces, they'll probably hold, and they will probably try to also strengthen the Kabul government in the negotiation process also. Because ultimately, what we have heard from the regional countries also is that no one is ready to allow Taliban to march into Kabul in the way that happened in '96. It is going to be most likely a negotiated deal. Otherwise, a prolonged civil war is on the cards.
But I suppose one of the main incentives for the Taliban to participate in recent peace talks and negotiations was well, perhaps the impending withdrawal of US troops. I mean, now that the US has vacated Bagram, which was both symbolic and strategic, is it not only a matter of time before well, the Taliban enjoys outright military success? Where is the incentive for them to compromise?
That's a valid point. However, Taliban know that they will need some financial support. Afghanistan lacks the revenue capacity. They have very little money which can run their own institutions. So the incentive for them will be the public opinion, regional public opinion, global public opinion, their capacity to run and their capacity to govern all of Afghanistan. Taking over some area through military means for Taliban will be only relevant in terms of the initial days. Ultimately, if they expect that they will govern, that they'll be a coalition partner, that they'll be responsible rulers in Afghanistan, they'll have to have support base from all the sides. That's their incentive, that they need to talk to the other side, because otherwise they will only be restricted to the areas where they're in control. They will not be able to hold districts in the north for long. That's my assessment.
Okay, thank you, Hassan Abbas, for joining us there from Washington.